Hello, everyone. Welcome to the February online Carmine Street Magics reading. I'm here with my co-host, Wendy Sloan, and very much looking forward to what I'm sure will be an amazing event. We have feature readers, Tufariello, who I think will be reading with us for the first time, and really looking forward to hearing her. Then we have David Yezzi, who many of us know, and of course, Don Zirilli, who has also read with us in the past. So as always, we're going to start with a few open mic readers. And the first open mic reader will be David Formanek.
Hi, everybody. How good to see you all. Jerry is going to help me read this work, which was confusing the last time I read one of these. Jerry and I go back many, many years. Our MFAs are in sculpture. Okay, my wife suggested I show you what these look like so that it's less confusing. I started writing them about 2 years ago, and I write them there are two things that go next to each other, and I write them serial like that. Let us begin. Combustion and combat. In this world's history, we're an explosion.
The ancient world is an eye blink away.
Teeming like woodlice under sodden logs.
The Trojan War, 3,300 years.
Every star has planets, a wild surmise.
Was yesterday, and except for gods.
When I was young, now demonstrated weekly.
And royal combatants dueling on the plain.
By orbiting electronic eyes on the cosmos.
It roars on today in never distant theaters.
Each world vastly different, so far away.
Fighting over this cause or that, if any.
We measure their distances in time.
But that we are a bellicose species.
The times it took to petrify past life forms.
Whose capacity for violence is cosmic.
Earth has its moons that stirred its chemistry.
Packaging the power of stars for wars.
Combined sea salts with clays in tidal pools.
Lest we forget, we can't. It's still ongoing.
And little creatures eating and recycling.
In the ironically christened Holy Land.
Mineral resources and each other.
The place the West pretends to itself.
Change the planet's nature into this home of fires.
To be the type locality of divine peace.
We unleash heat and poisons.
Where strains of ancient populations.
Recipe for a cannibal stew from hell.
Compete for surface like moles on a melon.
Cooking till the pot boils dry and melts. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yeah, that was, I think that worked well. I'm glad that you did that with the dialogue. That was great.
Yeah.
Our next reader is
Thank you very much.
Anne Drysdale.
I'm going to share a poem that I've written about the end of days, not the usual end of days, but the end of my days. Because, as I was saying, I'm as old as God's dog, so we have to think about these things. And this poem is called Antibes. I've always known that there will come a time when my life's terms evolve into conditions, and I shall need to seek my place of safety, the hotel on the seafront in Antibes. There I shall settle in and ride the wheel of read and write and sleep that rolls downhill in slow pursuit of the inevitable. There I shall happily embrace the status of cherished institution. Jo, madame, I'll come downstairs at roughly the same time each day, expected and accommodated. I'll take the rubber ferrule off my stick so I can rattle it imperiously against the flagstones from my wicker chair. Dibonnet, I shall shout, only to find a favourite waiter with a patient face will have anticipated my request. A drink no self-respecting Frenchman would consume, served at room temperature, a slice, no ice, made manifest, unquestioned, at the table that has become inarguably mine. I'll wave away the carte du jour. Surprise me! Chef will have knocked up something light and tasty that I'll consume a modest portion of, to leave room for a decadent dessert, which, when it comes, will never disappoint. I'll use a Sunday spoon and eat it slowly to make it last into the afternoon. I shall allow my inner Foley artist to tweak the soundtrack of my happiness. No clock to tick, no radio to mutter, only the distant whisper of the ocean, and near at hand, a cricket chirruping, occasional, conspiratorial. Well, there you are, at last. I was waiting for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Next up, we have John Foy.
It's an honor to be here and reading with Catherine and David and Don, and I congratulate David Yezzi on his new biography of Anthony Hecht, which is awesome. I look forward to reading it. So I understand that these days everybody hates sestinas, and so I went ahead and wrote one. This is relatively recent. It's called Sextina. I learned early on what it meant to work and what it meant, that thing about money. Wasn't it a basic fact of life? There were also questions about sex and how it fit in with writing poetry, but those were not in the economic order. My days back then were governed by order. I got up regularly and went to work. At night or at dawn, I wrote poetry. I never tried too much for money, although I knew I needed it, like sex, to balance gyroscopically my life. What did it mean to lead a good life? And what did we give up for order? My friends admitted that drive-through sex did not go on forever, only work, that quest for meaning and money. Few spoke ever about poetry. I tried always to write poetry, a bad call in the arc of a life when it came to questions of money. And I tried to man the walls of order, but often it did not work. As a consolation, there was always sex. What did I even know about sex? Well, a bit, and a lot about poetry. And I found a way to make them work so that my life was a good life down here in the natural order. Please don't ask about the money. What did I even know about money? I had a bachelor's degree in sex with a minor in meaning and order, and an MFA from Oberlin in poetry. Was that then the art and scope of my life? Sex, poetry, student debt, and work? Well, I did work and make some money, but life, mine anyway, was more about sex, poetry, and dealing with disorder. Thanks.
Thank you very much, John. Up next is Dan Brown.
Great to see everybody. This is quite the occasion. I'm honored to be part of it. This poem is called First Grade. I suppose I tallied a decent share of achievements there, but the moment I remember from it best was my being made only too aware by whom I'm not remembering, presumably some adult or other, maybe my teacher, more likely my mother, made only too aware of a thing I'd failed to do, stand properly at attention at my graduation. If asked to provide an explanation for the swerving from propriety involved, folded arms, I'd get little, if any, beyond, I blew it. 60 years and still I rue it. Simply a flub, a child's yet, that I wouldn't be stunned to be thinking about as I breathe my last. A last that may include my hearing my thinking say, some thought on which to flicker out. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dan. And I loved how you probably unconsciously referenced your one of your books, Taking the Occasion, when you said, this is quite an occasion. I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thank you, Matt.
I know it was subliminal, but I appreciate it.
Thanks.
Next up is one of our features of our next reading, which will be at the Jefferson Market Library on February 24th in person. Meredith Bergmann.
Thank you, Anton. I'm delighted to be here and to be about to hear you all. This is a poem that David published a while ago, David Yezzi, in the Hopkins Review. And I need you all to imagine the RCA Victor logo, please. His master's voice. If hearing and listening were the same, James Merrill, the Victor dog. A dog is listening to the dead. His master's brother played his master's voice from a wax recording. The dog sat down and all but stuck his head into the trumpet of the afterlife. His master's brother painted them, setting the eager ashen dog, the gleaming brass machine, against dark velvet and mahogany. They float on black on my computer screen. Is there no comfort in the past? The dog is listening for commands, his name, or for approval, something to make his pose make sense at last. His master trying to play Beethoven. Hearing her practice Tufariello, my mother-in-law's teacher in Vienna, told her then, you sound like you have never been in love. She thinks she was 11, maybe 10. I fell in love when I was 5, bewildering my mother. You can't be, I think she said. She silenced me. His voice, his laugh, survive in jumbled fragments that are hard to play. And now I find his name online. There's video, a dog cavorting with a tall, slim man. My childhood love, the master of that dog? His voice is wrong. The rhythm doesn't scan. His dog begins to bark for joy. Then, loud and close, a chuckle from the unseen cameraman. I recognize the timbre of that boy when he says, finally with pride, good girl. That's all I ever longed to hear. Now put the screen to sleep. Put Tufariello on instead, the soothing trills, the octaves in the bass, insistent, like pronouncements of the dead.
Thank you very much, Meredith. Thank you. Now it is my honor to introduce our first feature reader. Catherine Tufariello's first book is Keeping My Name, which was awarded the Poets Prize. Her poems have appeared in Poetry, Literary Matters, The Dark Horse, Able Muse Review, and elsewhere. She lives in Oklahoma City and works as a mental health counselor at the University of Oklahoma Health Sciences Center. And they're really looking forward to hearing from her. Welcome, Catherine.
Thank you, Anton, and thank you also to Wendy and Terezko for inviting me to participate today. I don't think I've ever gotten to go first in alphabetical order before, so this is quite unbalancing. I'm grateful for that too. I got kind of shaky at the beginning, and I still feel a little overwhelmed just seeing so many friends here today, and I just want to say how wonderful it is to see you all. I'm going to read 5 poems. The first is the only one that goes on to a second page. It was inspired by a thought-provoking little book by David Mamet called 3 Uses of the Knife on the Nature and Purpose of Drama. The book reflects on the challenges and some of the potential pitfalls that a playwright confronts at each stage of writing a 3-act play. I stole the title of Mamet's middle section for my poem. I think the stories the poem alludes to will be familiar, but I'll just mention for the sake of anyone who may have forgotten that George Bailey is the hero of Frank Capra's 1946 film, It's a Wonderful Life. I'm not going to summarize the plot, but it's easy enough to find if you don't remember it. Okay, second act problems. The epigraph is for Mamet. Solutions to the problem of the middle act are the test of character. The princess wanders spellbound in a wood. The prophet's in the belly of a whale. The empire overwhelms the force of good. Deep in the muddled middle of the tale, the noble cause to which the hero kneeled devolves to meetings, columns, and reports. A mentor's impure motives are revealed. Through the intestines of appellate courts, the case for justice crawls. Dorothy waits, watching the red sand run. The rebels mourn. Snow White is elbow deep in greasy plates. George Bailey wishes he was never born. Truth is elusive in the second act. The mind renews in endless permutations its search for some plain clarifying fact. Inconsequential lies hold implications looming like ships through fog. And all the while, time drains away in aimless afternoons, checklists and compromises, briefs to file, till failure, like a field of poppies, croons, "You've tried so hard, lie down and get some rest. None of it matters now." Shame drops the knife. In life, sometimes we learn surrender's best. Dorothy gives the witch her shoes. In life, George ends up through small deficits of will as Potter's partner. Mary and the kids live in the nicest house in Pottersville. George golfs on Sundays. Losers on the skids no longer ask his help. But now and then, nursing his final beer, he sits awake, vaguely unsettled by the boy again, pulling his brother from an icy lake. And Alice, bored, spends evenings playing bridge, having not quite forgotten Wonderland. Drink me, she thinks, and rifles through the fridge. She sighs, the bottle cool against her hand. A window frames the rising moon. A frost of condensation glistens on the glass. It's here the battle will be won or lost. Make no mistake. The neutral seconds pass. Here's one more on the theme of the middle of life. Meditation and middle age. Beauty is youth, youth beauty. That is all. A truth that you can straight arm or embrace when eyes slide past you and your mother's face peers from the mirror on the wall. With or without knives, needles, lasers, dyes, you'll lose this war. But losses can be freeing. And there were things you missed while locked in seeing yourself in your mind's eye through others' eyes. Farsighted now, you're startled by the shimmer of stars and landscapes swimming from a blur of burned off fog. And you were the child you were, alert and self-forgetful. See her curled unnoticed on a window seat in summer, lost in the dew-sharp garden of the world. One of the things I've become more and more aware of through working as a mental health counselor for the last few years is how double-edged and dangerous it can be to experience the emotion of hope. To hope is to yearn or long for something with the expectation, or at least with some belief in the possibility of fulfillment. And so to allow yourself to hope is to be vulnerable to anxiety, disappointment, even hope's opposite. There's one mythological reference here. The Greek god Epimetheus, known as the god of afterthought, is the brother of Prometheus. When Zeus sent Pandora with her jar as evils as punishment for mankind getting the gift of fire, Epimetheus ignored his brother's warnings and took her as his bride. Against hope. Cognate with Latin cupio, to desire, to yearn for immoderately, the flame of cupidity hidden in Christian virtue. Tall poppy, flamboyant, lithe, peering brown-eyed over the field, daring the scythe. Pink-purple heliotrope, faces turned upward, eastward, into a hail of rain. Unwary antelope grazing, dimpling a pool of cool water, the haunched lion watching. A taupe mole, sun-blinded, blinking, unthinking. Tail-flicking red fox. From Proto-Indo-European quep to boil or steam. Breath bubbles breaking, betraying the fugitive, hungry for air. A frayed rope, an envelope crouched in a box. A slippery slope, desire to despair. Recall your horoscope warning, be wary of friends carrying knives. Chiding, don't be like Epimetheus, duped by Zeus, all hindsight. Don't fall for the ruse. Don't be a stooge, a rube, a fool. Don't fall prey to Pandora's curse, last of her evils and the worst. And now for a counterpoint to that, this one gives hope that's saying, I think in February, it's okay to start looking forward to spring. March thaw. Overhead, skeins of geese honk as they pass. The dwindling snow crust, an eggshell of glass, cracks underfoot, hatching tufts of pale grass, and the air smells of loam and ozone. Sumps brim and windows creak open. Each twig wears a scrim of blurred buds, and the weather's new watchword is whim. Who'd have guessed that all winter, white dreamed of green, that icicles burn to catch fire? The pristine marmoreal palace of grief, the White Queen, starts to shimmer and swim. Once numb with despair, her ice statues glisten with bright, dripping hair and tears in their eyes. Look, touch the one there, the cold stone of her hand. Feel it soften. Consent to let her draw breath. Let perfection relent. Wind loves the branches, though blemished and bent. Let the child's tugging kite take flight in the park. Let seed leaves emerge from the nourishing dark. Let sap find its way to the tap in the bark. And now for something completely different. This last poem was written in response to one of the weekly light verse competitions hosted by the British magazine The Spectator. As some of you know, this is an international competition for poets writing in English, who each week are invited to respond to a different prompt. In this case, the prompt was more or less, I can keep a copy of it, but G.K. Chesterton once said that, quote, poets have been mysteriously silent on the subject of cheese. You are invited to disprove this assertion, maximum 16 lines. I decided, who better to celebrate cheese, or anything really, than the great American author of Leaves of Grass. Song of the Cheese. I sing of processed American cheese, the glory of these states, factory sliced and shredded by white aproned workers, clean and strong. But I do not decline to feast also on the cheeses of Europe. See me at the reception, hovering over the hors d'oeuvres, consuming a great wheel of cheddar, golden and glowing as the sun, making short work of the snowy rinded brie, gobbling up every crumb of the Morbier in its lair of smoky ash, devouring the blue mold of Roquefort and Gouda with its crimson wax. In vain does soft camembert run in the heat to escape me. In vain does a wedge of stinking bishop brandish its bristling name. In vain does ripe Limburger assault my nose with its stench of sweaty feet. In vain does the remotest iota of fermented milk in the vast wheeled universe conceal itself on a darkened moon or the bottom shelf of a locked up larder, or in a protective crust of puff pastry. I find I incorporate all are part of me. Out of them all, I press the cheese of myself. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, Catherine. That is absolutely brilliant. That's amazing. Please unmute yourself.
American
And
cheese.
so you can-
Hilarious.
and thank
Wonderful.
you Catherine, for a wonderful reading.
Wonderful reading. Thank you so much.
Wonderful,
Really lovely.
It's great, Catherine. Thank you.
Really great.
delightful.
Now, I always encourage our readers to put in the chat links to their books. Catherine, is your book available at all? I know that there are copies for $80 on Amazon that are used, but
Are they really $80? That's ridiculous.
yes.
I didn't even know it was available anymore on Amazon at all. I am honestly trying to get the second book out, but I do have copies myself that I bought at a discount, and I would, if anybody wants one, please just contact me back channel and I will send you one, okay?
Email Catherine on the black market of her book. That was really a fantastic reading, and thank you so much for reading with us. When your next book comes out, hopefully you'll be able to read with us again. Great. So I will mute everyone again, and we'll proceed with a bit more of the open mic. Our next open mic reader is Wendy Videlock.
Hi, everybody. Catherine, that was wonderful. Such a fan. I'm just delighted to be here today. I'm going to share a little poem called A Few Words About Words. The root of the word courage is cor, the Latin word for heart. Take heart, we say, have courage, we mean. Nostrovia, chin chin, cheers, l'chaim, these are words we lift and drink. Snow is a word that disappears. Rain, they say, has tiny hands. Time is a word, when placed just right within the line, unwinds. Friction and fission, remember the difference between paradox and contradiction. Charity gives her mercy away and finds herself in a state of grace. The word fear lives in a cage. It rattles. It laughs too hard at the theater or on the stage. It turns red, the turning page. Impatience stands with her hands on her hips. A grudge just wants to be kissed on the lips. The racist is always the other guy. Shame seems to have begun in paradise. A fascist on either side is hardly inclined to gaze up at the night sky. Greed insists on being right. It has no reason to compromise. The mystic is deeply interested in how we use words. Some people are more interested in how to poison birds. Collateral damage is friendly fire. There is presence and there is the live wire. Woke is a word that has no purchase when dreaming or climbing a mountain. Waking seems to be a lot better. The word daughter is bathed in warm water. The word son is wedded to war. Nobody knows what pride is for. Grief is the price we pay for love. Revenge is the name we give to a lot of things we don't want to face. Justice is public, service is private, amends tend to escape the pious. And joy is a word so sacred it aches. Some say there's no such thing as a blank slate. I'm sorry are words that if you haven't said of late, you probably never did. The flower is a reminder of how brief our time. Beware those who won't linger in a field of them. Of all the words and all the arts, there are few so sublime as the art of change. Perhaps there's nothing so divine as the strange. Wonder and wisdom and welcome are words that for some are gentle and easy on the tongue. I have hoped to be one of them.
Thank you.
all.
Thank you very, very much, Wendy, and great to have you read with us again. Great to see you.
Thank you.
Up next is Robert Donohue.
All right, this one's a sonnet. They didn't specifically write about Jerry Lee Lewis, but I was listening to one of his records when the idea came to me. It's called In the Booth. He lived his life, and you would cross a line to find the habitat he flourished in. And even though we hoped he could begin anew, he let us down, time after time. And when he dabbled in an actual crime, we made excuses, calling it the sin we gave forgiveness, like his chance to win the numbers game had come, yet more sublime. If up to him, then he would fool around, and just as carelessly a song was sung, as he would burn through liver, brain, and lung. That was the way he would produce his sound. But through it all we prayed he also found a ladder there, which had a bottom rung.
Thank you very much, Robert. And our next open mic reader is Michael Palma.
It's great to see so many good friends and excellent poets, and the readings have been superb so far. I'll try not to drop the baton. The poem I'm going to read is unpublished. It's in blank verse, and it is seasonally apt, especially up here in Vermont. It's called The Shovelers. Houses are larger in this part of town and farther apart. Reminders of a time no one remembers now. The woman steps onto the wide porch, pulling her sweater close around her shoulders, pressing her lips together. Over her misting glasses, she scans the street for someone to move the unexpected snow that clutters up her ground. Around the corner come two young men with shovels on their shoulders, bringing with them sudden flashes of the young man who had walked into her home a life or more ago and assumed the shape of every hope that she'd been furnished with, who'd brought her here, where she was dropped into a well that filled and filled until she felt the waters rush together overhead and grasped whatever came to hand, whatever outlasted love. She beckons the young men, they make their bargain, and she goes inside, surrounded by her things. Up in the attic, lured by the scrape of shovels on his sidewalk, the old man picks his way through jumbled piles toward the front window, working a pathway past the things that wit and memory might forge into a chain whose links might draw him back, if he would let them, to a moment when all of the traits he once found so endearing began to irritate. Just as there was a moment when the first of all his clean cells turned cancerous. He looks below at two young men who, bundled and remote, could almost be his sons. his sons are far, sitting in offices to track the ghosts of numbers across plastic screens and make money for people they will never meet and wouldn't come to rumple his new snow the way these strangers have. The sidewalk cleared. The two young men stand talking for a moment before they turn their shovels toward the house. The woman stands behind the parlor curtains. The old man leans against the attic window, watching them quickly clear the walk as though there were no other business in the world, their bodies barely able to contain the joy that courses through them like a current. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Our next open mic reader is Jan Castro.
Okay, so thank you to everybody. Catherine, your stuff was great. This is a 14-line poem that echoes Richard Ford's dark novel, A Piece of My Heart. And it's called, I'm glad he's gone, that crazy hunter, glad he's gone. We drive the afternoon sun down to a green hollow. Silver pink morning doves ride the rose-tinged sky. A red Angus, Hereford dams, a longhorn with sagging udders, graze. You shoulder the 22, fix the long-necked turkeys in the hairline scope of the hairline cross of the scope, and pull off 3 shots. 6 birds, then 5 more, stutter up, disappear into the folds of parched hills. The cows turn their heads in your direction. Night settles you down. Creatures tame and wild melt into uncolored forms in unillumined spaces. The wind mutters as cricket and coyote sounds slip together. Wild turkey lust that made you drive circles around twilight relaxes into a lapping snore. A crescent moon and evening star poke bright pinholes into an expansive sky. The night swallows mountains whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. We have one more open mic reader before our second feature, and the next open mic reader is Chris Brandt.
Hello, Anton. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to read a poem called November 2023. I am a blind girl crawling through the shattered shards of her family's house under a sky full of bombs, feeling for a sibling's touch. I am an intern leaning over an unconscious man on a gurney, checking blood pressure and oxygen levels, adjusting an IV drip, trying to stop my ears hearing the whistles and crashes of mortars aimed at my hospital. I'm a mother holding her children, crooning to them that everything will be okay, singing them safe even as their own fear explodes with each bomb. I am a boy tuning a radio, searching for his favorite string quartet, desperate to replace this crescendo of fear spreading under the metal storm. I am the pilot of a fighter jet, carrying missiles like loaves of warm bread under its wings, my finger on the trigger, pretending that once I fire the missiles, they are no longer any of my business. I am a teenage girl drafted into military service, but refusing for the 3rd time, knowing that I will be sent to prison for the 3rd time. I'm a poet reading his poems of love in another country, holding back tears and hoping to get back to his family, whose house is now a crater. I am all of them and none of them. I wake up in terror, but it was only a nightmare, and this is my own bed. The sounds through my window are car horns and wind, not fighter bombers. The sky is empty of threats, except that I know the bombs will come here too, since they are our bombs. Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you, Chris. And it hurt to follow up on that, but we will need to proceed, but thank you. Thank you for reading that. So our next feature reader, the second feature reader today, is David Yezzi. Of course, I will introduce him, though, as many of you will say he needs no introduction for many of you in this Zoom room. Nonetheless, David Yezzi is a poet, editor, and professor. His latest books are More Things in Heaven, New and Selected Poems, and just recently published, Late Romance, Anthony Hecht, A Poet's Life. He is the editor of the Swallow Anthology of New American Poets and the author of the verse play Schnauzer, produced by the Baltimore Poets Theater, and the libretto for David Conte's opera Firebird Motel. A former director of the Unterberg Poetry Center of the 92nd Street Y, he teaches in the writing seminars at Johns Hopkins and lives in Baltimore. And as always, we very much look forward to hearing from him. Welcome, David Yezzi.
Thank you, Anton. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Thanks to Anton and to Wendy for having me. I feel so fond and attached to this group for so long that it really means a lot to be back here. Thank you. And I'm hugely thrilled and honored to be reading with Catherine and Don. So I'll start with a poem. These are all from the new section of the New and Selected, with a few older poems sprinkled in. I hope I'm not repeating myself too horribly, but the first poem takes its epigraph from something I came across on social media. It's a headline from CNN, which read, "They went to an abandoned home to smoke weed. Inside, they found a tiger." And the title of the poem is Tiger, Tiger, Tiger with a Y, like William Blake's Tiger. Tiger, Tiger. Strong bud, mind-splitting, hydroponic, pure indica, body-high, one-hit weed, grown from Hawaiian seeds in a closet in a double-wide in Maine up near Canada. To say that it unleashed the tiger is to say everything and nothing. To say that they had failed to foresee the consequences of their actions is to be complicitly young. Eve had the weed and Adam had the papers. And they'd been having sex in fields and organ lofts and in abandoned houses. Even so, you never forget your first tiger. Nor had they dreamed it, like the Argentine writer Julio Cortázar, who imagined how it might be possible to share a living space with a wild creature, or, more to the point, how it would not be possible. What if the tiger claimed more and more of space until the house was split in half? The parlors and the dining room and the foyer and the stairs would become the tiger's, and the rest under threat, cramped, and, because the thermostat was in the half gone out of bounds, cold. So here they were, the boy and the girl, and the weed, though they hadn't even gotten around to smoking it when this sleek shimmer and ripple of muscle entered the room. At first, they were not afraid of it. Rather, they fully expected that wherever they went, extraordinary things would follow them. And if this took the form of an emerald-eyed carnivore with a voice like a fault line, then this was only different in degree and not in kind from what they had come to feel was the new normal of their time together, both high and sober, either in public, at the movies, under the Milky Way, in the bushes, or in the dark, secret confines of a house where no one had lived for years, except a tiger. There was nothing really strange about it, only that they began to fear for its care over time, sweeping out the rooms, arranging for food and medicine should the tiger fall ill with a viral infection or suppuration from an ingrown claw. But wasn't it their tiger? They had found it. My tiger is your tiger, she had told him. Finding a forever home for a tiger is not easy, said the game warden, who took the tiger in, bathed it, and kept it in a cage for future transfer to a willing zoo, where its movements would be remarked on the way that memories are, at a distance, through wrought iron bars, the tiger growing listless, eyes dimmed, except on those occasions when a pair of stoned kids holding hands and pausing before it gaze in and recognize something familiar and full of mischief and impunity, guided by a sense of natural law, whisper a secret plan to set it free. And now, as I think Catherine said, for something entirely different. This next poem takes its title from a Bach cantata and features the man himself. It's called Sheep May Safely Graze. In darkness, with the smell of tallow hanging in the damp around his desk, he dips his pen to scratch another melody across the topmost staff, the left hand speaking back to the right, then flying up, a finch above the keyboard he has pictured in his mind. The church is cold, where yesterday he laid to rest the second of his twins, a girl, Maria Sophia, outlasting her brother by only a few weeks. Johann Christoph survived just long enough to have a name and his father's love. He went the day he came. Alone in Weimar, with Goethe not yet born, and the scythe of history sleeping in the wheat, he listened to the notes that made no sound, giving himself completely to the laws of counterpoint, alive in every key, and ruled by them, composed a song of praise. This is a somewhat older poem, though none of them are brand new, alas. Got all tangled up in writing prose recently, and so need to get back to poems hopefully soon. This is called Minding Rights. Rights is R-I-T-E-S, rights, minding rights. This guy I know, a rabbi, Friday nights on his way home before sunset in winter, always stops at a florist or bodega and buys a bunch of flowers for his wife. Every week, the same, a ritual. Regardless of her mood that morning, fresh upsets at work or snarling on the bridge, he brings her roses wrapped in cellophane. But isn't there a ring of hokiness in that? Why should a good man have to show his devotion? Some things go unspoken. Some things get tested on the real world. And isn't that the place that matters most? So when you told me I should bring you flowers, I joked, but don't I show my feelings more in dog walks, diapers, and rewiring lamps? The flowers, I learned later, weren't for wooing, not for affection in long marriage, but for something seated even deeper down through frost heaves, and which might be roughly peace. It's funny that I just assumed romance. Now there's no peace with us. I wonder what they might have meant to you, those simple tokens, holding in sight what no right can grow back. Another more recent poem. If I can find it. Sorry. It's called What's Changed? The thing that stung me most after you died was how I couldn't tell my news to you. It made it so my good days barely mattered. Nearer your age today, I realize, surprisingly, because it's unfamiliar, that just now I am ludicrously happy. I think of you, how pleased you were to hear when things were going well, when life was all you'd hoped for me, your daily inward prayer. I feel you here. A house wren chirps outside. An airplane rides home in the higher air. So quiet, you can hear me. Leaves, a breeze. An hour on, this windfall will be gone. This news is for you alone. I say it quickly, while I am once again, briefly, your son. All right, this is really going all the way back to the first collection in the that's represented in the selected. And it's called Acceptance Speech, based on the Serenity Prayer, which I'm sure you know. Acceptance Speech. Accept the things you cannot change, the bleeding clock, the nightly go, dog leash in tow around the block, neural chemistry, patchy hair, a longing stare and X-ray eye, and the niggling fact that things will stay roughly this way, to be exact. Forgive the things you cannot have, the supple bod, taught undergrads, a nicer pad, long chats with God, an older name, your peers' respect, the all correct, unbridled fame, a sense of ease in your own skin, a lighter burden by degrees. The life you'd swap for on the train, sight unseen, is much like yours, though it appears more green. So why this pain that shorts the breath and spoils your health? You grow serene, not yet, but after your will resigns a few more times with heavy laughter. And the last poem is just a short poem. I'm sorry, I'm right at my time here. It's a poem about origami called Crane. Paper creased is, with a touch, made less by half, reduced as much again by a second fold. So the wish to press our designs can diminish what we hold. But by your hands' careful work, I understand how this unleaving makes of what's before something finer and finally more. Thank you.
Thank you so very, very much. Thank you. A magnificent reading. And please unmute yourselves, everyone. We can applaud. We can thank David.
Wonderful, David.
Wonderful.
Great.
Wonderful, David.
Great reading, David.
Deep and deep.
Bravo, David.
And our next open mic reader is David M. Katz.
Yeah, I'm going to read a short poem that will appear in a wonderful publication, new to me and probably new to many of us, but an old publication called The Classical Outlook, which is Rachel Haddis became the poetry editor, and she's delivering a kind of renaissance there. She's a wonderful, as we know, she's a wonderful poet and classicist herself. So this poem will appear in that, and it concerns Daedalus and Icarus, a very familiar myth, in which, as I'm sure you're all familiar, the Papa Daedalus creates wonderful wings made of wax on the son Icarus, and Icarus flies too close to the sun when the wax melts, and down he goes to a bad ending, as poetry has envisioned from that time, from the time of the Greek myths down to Auden and so forth. So he goes down into the water, or he goes down into land, and he's dead, the poor young man. However, I had the temerity to envision another outcome, a more positive one, which Rachel questioned me on, and I said I made it up. So this is after the fall. Nothing could be more beautiful than the real. Watch Icarus walking wingless on the ground, at his ease, no story any longer to uphold, but that of this day. The young man, now fully free of any father's bidding, strides easily in the webless air. He is no longer made, no longer of high aspirations. What he was to become is now complete and at a safe distance from the sun. The air is cool and bright, and the road beneath his feet and ahead of him. It is a delight to be unable to fly.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. Please remind me I might have an Icarus story to exchange with you next time I see you, maybe at Poetry by the Sea. Okay, our next open mic reader is Mark McDonnell.
Hello.
Oh.
I'm going to read a poem, a new poem. I just recently read Ulysses for the first time, and so I consider myself officially well read now. And I've attempted to summarize that huge tome into 14 lines. Foolish project, probably. And it starts with an epigraph from the novel. Womb fruit and quickening. Who made those allegations, says Alf. I, says Joe. I'm the alligator. James Joyce, Ulysses. A mirror and a razor crossed, the air expectant, bringing sea breeze, catechism, a liquid breakfast. Down the winding stair, the day spread out for you. It is a prism to split the light 1,000 ways. And east above the sandy mount, the sun will bloom for a willing cuckold, eating fowl and beast, preparing for the slug from crib to tomb. From inner organs, outhouse defecation, from dodging biscuit tins to spilling seed on twilit siren sands. What is a nation? Same people in the same place? None agreed. But oh, the universe of difference. Bless the sacred difference. Yes, she said, and yes. Cheers.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mark. Next up is Linda Stern.
Thanks, Anton, and thanks also to Wendy and Therese for hosting. This poem is called Blueberries. Summers, grandmother sent us out to pick blueberries, even those years after mother died. Each of us holding an empty coffee can or a large-mouthed jar, her posse of pickers, little girls in pastel sundresses. We ate and picked and ate and picked. Nothing is sweeter than ripe berries on the bush in late August. Nothing more jewel-like, more like a jewel buried in the unyielding earth. Afterwards, she sorted them, pulling off stems, washing their blue skins, and then by magic, blueberry muffins, pies, pancakes, cobblers. Like every woman, she was an alchemist. Soon enough, hot afternoons gave way to storms. She packed away the empty cans and jars and dresses that would be too small next year. We left, summer empty, bereft of fruit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Linda. Thank you. Next up is Gerald Wagoner.
Okay. A brief history of my first marriage, 1969. Oh, one note. Chinook is both a type of salmon and a warm winter wind. It's a Native American word, means snow eater. Okay, a brief history of my first marriage, 1969. Chinook, snow eater, blustered, dusted from dawn on. Big rock concert scheduled on campus. A Missoula band back from the Bay Area bearing towers of amps and speakers. Free acid all night. Free acid, towering stacks of amps and speakers. Sound surrounded all around by sound, slot car riffs, orgasmic crescendos. We dance, sweat, shout, dance, bright black light, strobe throb, strobe bomb, a paramecium I float blue-hued, bioluminescent among jellyfish, pulse, flash, tangerine, swim in strobe, spin in a prism's dazzling daze, Chinook, the snow eater, drools. Electric lavender shimmers down its scaly silver cheeks. Acid dilation, strobe punched, red, green, aquamarine, pulse slap, vessels visible in my wide-angle eyes, pulse slap maps, veins in my flooded brain. I see myself twice, like in a movie. After, from the bridge, she and I bellow, Chinook, snow eater, crack the Clark Forks ice, river, tumble your frozen mantle, make ragged, angry slabs, jagged edge, rigid plates that scrape, fall, fracture, then splayed across bladed shelves. After, together in our warm bed, we marvel at the breathing web of iridescent beads glimmering on invisible cosmic strings. While fucking, we both leave our bodies, drift into a rainbow astral plane to become one, wedded in love, to emerge a single entity, two as one forever. Wait, I am the steely salmon smolt. I must turn to the current and grow downstream in wilder and deeper waters. By mid-afternoon, a mass of sub-zero Arctic air had bullied down the Rockies to engulf the region. Winds out of the Hellgate froze the split ice, restitched the ragged flow. The river, as before, carried on below. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. We have one more open mic reader before the third feature. The next open mic reader is Marjorie Maddox.
Thank you, Anton. I had no idea that people didn't like sestinas anymore. I still like sestinas. So this is a sestina appropriate for February, and it's also a poem that was chosen to go to the moon on a NASA trip during this year sometime. So this is called Apart Together, Pandemic Night Sky. As always, the elliptical orbit of you is no star-studded light show of me, just gravitational pull between wish you were here and here, blips in the night sky that sink our breathing. Which moon best mimics isolation? Of course, new moon moves in with ancient dirge, orbits absence, while black backdrop of sky wanes and waxes, its slight punctuations of light, mere crescents of consistent inconsistency. Here, not here, gains meaning when gravity gives up its ghost to float us to sky, gravity's loyalty to Earth abandoned for a close-up of moon and its unromantic glow of distance, there to here. Still, memory holds us tight in intersecting orbits. Half a country away and the familiar patterns that light your face light mine. You argue the skies are different, but really what matters is not the sky's design, but the reason we're looking. Gravitational pull, still pulling. Despite the miles, lack of light, weather, terrain, pandemic, moon is still moon. No matter how many times our longing orbits separate states of being. You, there, not here, defines lonely. But not always. Your here is mine when constellations connect. Each sky enough alike to keep linked even desperate orbits. This is the way of the body's gravity. Blood pumps, bones grow, all because the moon motions, look, follow the tides of light to love, still here ebbing across this unlit country of fear. Mark that on the map of here, now. So what if the overblown romance of moon burns cold? What we're viewing each night is sky that's more than a summary of stars, gravity, the give and takes that keep us each in orbit. Praise then to the orbit of us, to sky and light, to loyal moon and gravity, to each nightly map of home, of here.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Marjorie. I am now delighted and honored to introduce our third feature reader, Donald Zirilli. Donald Zirilli is the poetry adjudicator for the New Jersey Teen Arts Festival. He edited the Rutherford Red Wheelbarrow and Now Culture. His poetry has been published in over 40 periodicals and anthologies, and was nominated for a Pushcart, a Forward Prize, and Best of the Net. And he was a finalist for the James Tate Prize. His chapbook, Heaven's Not For You, was published by Kelsey Books in 2018. Please help me welcome Don Zirilli.
Thank you. It's an honor to read with my co-features tonight. There's been a lot of discourse about sonnets on social media. So I thought I would start my feature with some sonnets. This one was published by Miriam, who should be in the Zoom meeting. And She put it in an anthology, a very nice anthology called Irresistible Sonnets. It's called Made of Gauze. My mother, made of gauze, could never be unveiled, for veils she was. And to be viewed, she must be worn, as oysters wear the sea around their pearly necks. Though born as nude as teardrops on a cheeky smile, in wrecks of bone and coral, over collars getting wet. My mother, softly woven hex upon a silent story, not regretting, never passing, only waving, blanket blanking lovers, love absorbing, warmly nothing, beautiful as wind. So plank it, stand in salty air, the plankton forming dusty pillows as their cases trail behind. I'm empty. Let me be your sail. Okay, this is another sonnet. It's called Dying in the 21st Century. It was published by Grand Little Things, which is a nice small online publication that publishes formal verse if you're interested. Dying in the 21st Century. Samarkand is an adjective for leather. It has no inhabitants, no taxes. Troops do not amass on the border, nor does weather assail its horizons. Still, you can find loops for all your buttons. Sweep your finger through the fringe, or smell the life that once infused the fabric with blood and melanin. You knew, or might have known, the muscles that were used to shape and propel this handbag, canteen, saddle. The skin of horses or donkeys, which are you, are now a turquoise green shagreen. The cattle who fed your stiff black boots are marching too, accosting a crucial city lost among the nettles of a networked eye and tongue. Okay, this is the last proper English sonnet I'll be reading tonight. The world will end as your beard ends. The world will end as your beard ends. One day at morning, tired, sick, forgetting what you are, reverting to a younger way, you'll lather up your cheeks and chin, a rut from long ago re-entered. Even pain won't shake you from this dream made real. All trace of hair will slowly scrape away. You'll crane your neck and diligently scan your face. The skin is smooth, the damage done. Your smile doesn't match your expectation. There is something wrong or missing, taken while you were so distracted with your care. A naked visage, all distinctions shorn off one by one, but beards at least are mourned. Okay, so now to dive into sonnet controversy. I call this a sonnet, but trigger warning, it's an anapestic tetrameter. It's called Race Against Fossilization. It's about dating a paleontologist, and there is a paleontologist on this Zoom call, at least one. When the paleontologist kisses your nose with unusual tenderness, stroking the length of your cartilage, teasing the bulb like a rose in the hands of a gardener, testing the strength and the form of his patiently wooed objet d'art. Keep in mind that ephemeral features are dear to him, finely distinguishing you to his heart. Take a moment to contemplate finding the queer ancient bones of the Megatapirus, arrayed like the cards of a fortune, the structure a match to the modern-day tapir. But time has mislaid the expression, the light of her face as she'd catch a fresh bundle of leaves with her nose. Pull him in to your lips. Let a new carbon dating begin. All right, that's enough sonnets. This is a found poem, and I'll tell you where I found it. I found it in my email at work. I put it in William Carlos Williams stanzas. It's called Totally Chocolate. On October 10th, I was told there was a package delivered, UPS, from Totally Chocolate, addressed to me. I was told it was an inside delivery, meaning it was put in the office somewhere. Has anyone seen the box? Or if you tried the chocolate and have the information that was in the package, can you please put it on my desk across from Kelly's office? Let me know how the chocolate was if you tried it. So as Anton mentioned, I do have a book that's still available on Amazon at the original price. I put the link in the chat. I will read the book. When you get to the Amazon, it'll say, Heaven's Not For You, the poetry of Josh Nazarene. Hopefully by the end of the poem that I read, you'll know who Josh Nazarene is. This poem is called Sufficient. You can't worry about your life and care about anything else. Life is more than meat. A body is more than clothes. Look at the birds. They have no laptops or wallets, but they are fed. You've been thinking all morning, but you're not an inch taller. The side yard battalion of lilies you don't remember planting. Calvin Klein has no collection to compete with these. Look at tomorrow's furrowed forehead. Leave it alone, slouching at its desk. Today has all the evil you will ever need. Okay, to finish my feature, I'm going to read a villanelle that I wrote for Anton. It's called The Rules Apply. It's a perfect villanelle, almost too perfect. Anyway. The only thing I learned from years of crying, loss, humiliation, pain, and failing once again is that the rules apply to me. I can't pick up somebody's violin and play. I'll never grow a tail. The only thing I learned from years of crying over women I would never try to know, who never docked and won't be sailing once again, is that the rules apply to me. I thought my heart could tell a lie from truth and conjure up the Holy Grail, The only thing I learned from years of cryogenic workarounds, creative dialectic syntheses, and plans derailing once again is that the rules apply to me when I would teach you how to fly above the walls of your imagined jail. The only thing I learned from years of crying once again is that the rules apply. All right. Thank you. Thanks, Anton.
Thank you very, very much. And yes, please unmute. Please unmute yourself so we can applaud. But really, really fantastic. Delightful reading.
Done. Very good.
Best pun of the evening, carbon dating.
Thank you.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wonderful, Don, wonderful.
So
Thank you.
concludes, I guess, maybe the official part of our reading. I know, some of you may need to go, but if you have a few more minutes and would like to stick around, we do have a few more open mic readers. And so I hope that you can stay. So the next open mic readers will be Paul Nash and Denise Neve.
Thank you. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. This is a tandem piece we wrote and performed together. It was first published in Sensations magazine, later in an anthology called Beyond the Rift, put out by the Poets Press, and most recently in Quill and Parchment, its issue on rivers. So without further ado, we'll begin. Mullican pines. Whirring cicadas mimic the distant Doppler whirring of a lone prop plane as high summer air shimmers
over the sloping meadow down to river's edge.
The Mullica lies shadowed
beneath a cool canopy of pines and cedars, a mere trickle caressing hawthorn,
alder,
swamp laurel,
and wild blueberries. Its current is like a snake slithering through flickering verdant galleries.
Serpentine undulations gliding quickly out of sight in bend after bend.
As its course slowly widens, still meandering sharply through dappled sunlight.
Curves unfold to open marsh of pink
and white nymphaea and yellow nufar.
Cobalt and teal damselflies dart over a flex ribbon of sun surface sheen.
The river's flow pendulates over deep pools
and winds down
as time slows to smoke
along a silken shoreline.
Drosera's tendrils glisten with bright solar hues.
Sequence of blue and lilac,
luring winged messengers
to Medusa's lair. A pitcher plants red-veined leaves
above beds of sphagnum moss, are rainwater cisterns
gleaming in the late day sun, chalices of buzzing death for unwary flies.
Night falls softly to ripple
the moon's
silver reflection
over secret springs.
Whippoorwills chorus their cries into atonal vespers of shrill dementia.
Calls rising, then falling off, jeering nocturnal muses,
presaging the dawn. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I love the dialogue poems we have today. Our next open mic reader is Charlotte Innes.
This is again, I tend to read like my most recent poems here, and sort of, it's a bit of a risk, but I'm going to do it again. And it is an ekphrastic poem after painting by Annie Clavel, who actually was the artist who did the cover of my chapbook, 20 Pandemicals, and this painting is called Promenade. And it really that was just the jumping off point, it goes off into a sort of surreal thing, and which is actually kind of real to me. And it's a loose hexameter, I try. And hexameters usually mean some sort of darkness or menace to me. Okay. The man with the military cap. Maybe he knows what's in the air. Or is it the girl he sees waving from a topmost branch, her arms held high, as if to celebrate success, yet wary? Of course, she must be in despair for the dying trees, their leaves gone blackish blue like thunderclouds. Or she's signaling her sister, dangling from a tree still green, though edged with mold, oddly topped by a crucifix. Their attempt to stop the creeping dark. Don't climb, go back, the older girl appears to shout, also eyeing her father. Ancient, bent, frail, he clutches the branch she's sitting on as if to save her. Beyond the trees, the man with the military cap feels sure the father's weight will break it. Snap, he almost hears, imagines a thud. Maybe it's time. He's already seen the roots beneath the soil, their soft red or amber like old silk beginning to blacken, under attack from a creature black and hungry as a blackhorn beetle. It's like a massive hemodialysis machine, sucking up the sap, sending back an army, larvae boring into trunks and branches to hatch and eat until the trees collapse. The man keeps walking. The girl, watching, sees him gazing raptly towards a green hill far away. She fears that she, her father, her sister, will soon grow dark and hollow unless they leave, go look for green. Follow the man with the military cap? She squints a bit. Elbows bent, right foot forward. He's almost marching. He must be fleeing the trees. They are so black, so rank. And yet, chest out, a glint of something at his neck. He seems triumphant. He has to know. He must know everything. The girl descends, uneasy. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Charlotte. Our next reader is Harvey Soss.
Fine. Okay. Poem I'm going to read, just two brief notes. One is that the reference to a capo is to a prisoner in the extermination camps who was put in charge of other prisoners. Many years ago, I represented one the U.S. was pursuing. I'm still not sure I did the right thing, but at any rate, and also in future appearances, I'll be appearing as Red Rider, the name I'm writing under, it being too difficult to distinguish, my real name from that. This is called Hello, this is AI. Would you please put your human on the phone? At first, I was thinking I'd received a butt dial from one of those cheerleaders at Publishers Clearinghouse. You know the sort, part televangelist, part telemarketer, advising me that, surprise, I had won a cash prize, confirmed in that strangely flat voice favored by artificial intelligence, its rise captured in How Green Was My Silicon Valley, best-selling memoir of chat AI, incentivizing my participation, dangling the prospect of found money before me like a mousetrap baited with stinky cheese. My old pal Artie's idea of a joke, the robot and I having worked together at Mel's slaughterhouse, AI promoting the advantages of daily updates over human evolution, landing a gut punch on our Charles Darwin. Its circuitry, confident of a win in any debate, not caring how we pizza lovers feel rubbing it in. You bipeds require a special source of nanobots to keep it real, displaying a gamer's sense of manifest destiny, like a jobber pitching Kool-Aid to those folks at Jonestown. Its view of creation consisting mostly of a coalescence of microchips, nothing anthropomorphic, the lie frescoed on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel by Michelangelo. What does it want from me? A concession that canned laughter has a greater shelf life than H. sapiens? That machine intelligence takes a back seat to no one? Yes, and yes. In any Brainiac versus Brainiac contest, mano a nano, AI would have bitch-slapped a Einstein. Exuding friendly persuasion, the exuberance of a game show host. Artie allows that if I play my cards right, it might let me hitch my Volkswagen to its star, light up the night with my phosphorescent humanity. After the inevitable extinction event, holding open a position as its token human, atom with no Eve in sight, that snowbird known as mankind having flown the nest. Lone survivor then, coupled off with an Ubermensch, at pains to caution its curious subroutines. Look, don't touch. History having proved the contagiousness of flesh since time out of mind. Same deal that was offered to capos at Nazi death camps. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Harvey. Our last open mic reader is Chris O'Carroll.
Thank you, Anton. And thank you, everybody, for sticking around for a little more poetry than you had actually banked on this afternoon. If I am still laughing and smiling on my deathbed, I will owe a huge debt of gratitude to both my parents for their good example. This is a poem in memory of my father. It's called He Gets the Joke. The strokes have more or less cut off his legs. Where once he kicked the sea to keep afloat after the kamikazes sank his ship, or walked and crooned a jillion bedside miles, 8 babies on his chest, he now finds he can't stand and take 2 steps across the room. With wits intact, but no mobility, here in this bed, he'll live and die and laugh while his breath lasts. The hospice nurses come to ply him with the standard inquiries about his nap times, pills, and vital signs. To one bland query, he shrugs, I'll survive. Dad, no, you won't, we blurt. He laughs with us, owning mortality with joyful noise. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Chris. And thanks everyone who participated in the open mic. Please unmute yourselves so we can do one more round of applause to everyone who read today, our open mic, and of course, our 3 brilliant teachers. Thanks everyone for being here. Thank you for sticking around. And that's our reading. Please join us again. We have a number of, we actually have a couple of readings coming up. We're going to have an in-person reading at Jefferson Market Library on Saturday, February 24th. It will be Saturday rather than Sunday because the New York public libraries are no longer open on Sundays, but it can be at 3 o'clock. I think arrive a little early, maybe at 2:45. We'll start at 3 sharp. And the features, Jefferson Market Library in New York, the features will be Meredith Bergmann, one of our hosts, Therese Coe, and Bob Holman, who many of you know, who owns the Bowery Poetry Club and is really well-known, a well-known poet. And also on March 3rd, please join us on Zoom again. We will hear Adam Vines, Dan Mumi, and one other poet that is invited but yet to be confirmed. Hopefully will be confirmed very soon. So that will be, I'm sure, fantastic. So thanks again, everyone, for being here.
Thank you, Anton. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you,
Anton and Wendy. Catherine,
being here, Wendy.
David,
This was a great
reading. Great reading.
Thank you. Great to see you.
Wonderful reading. Thank you.
Yes. See you all soon, I hope.
Participate.
Have a great evening.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Yeah. And actually, and the open mic readers.
Oh.
Of course, our indispensable audience.